Hey everyone, my name is Britt and welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some statistics about my favorite, least favorite, surprising, disappointing reads of the first quarter of the year. So I saw this idea on Books and Lala's YouTube channel. She did something similar in which she also talked about the stats of Q1, and I thought, I love stats, I love pie charts, I love just looking back at my reading for the last couple of months. I'm going to do the same. So thank you for inspiring me. 2021 has already been an amazing reading year for me. It's my best reading year yet. So I am very positive about the rest of this year. I feel like it's going to be a good one. Okay, statistics first. In total, I have read 34 books in January, February, and March. How? 19 of them were physical books, one of them was an ebook, and 14 were audiobooks. In total, the pages that I physically read were 5,743 pages. This doesn't include audiobooks. I will talk audiobooks in terms of hours. I listened to 145 hours worth of audiobook. And my average rating is a 4.04, which is really high. So I'm just happy that I know the type of books that I kind of know and hope I will enjoy. And I'm kind of right, so that feels really good. Then let's talk about the age category. So in total, I read 26 adult books, 6 young adult books, and 2 middle grades. And lastly, for the stats, let's look at some of the biggest genres that I read most of. Okay, here I have all of these genres that I read most of. As you can see, I read 8 romance books, but that's because I listened to all of the Bridgerton books. I also read 6 non-fiction books, and I definitely want to read way more this year. 4 historical fiction, which I also really like. 5 contemporaries. Only 1 science fiction, so I really have to read some more science fiction because it's one of my favorite genres. And only 4 fantasy, which is quite low for me because I do like to read fantasy, but apparently I'm kind of leaning towards other genres more in the last few months, but maybe that will change in the rest of the year, we will see. Okay, so these were all of the stats. I loved seeing this, and I'm just so happy with everything that I already read this year. I'm kind of amazed. And lastly, in total, I read 20 books from my physical TBR, which I'm also so happy about, and others were just like audiobooks that I don't have physically. So 20 books off my TBR, even though I did get a lot of new books already in the past few months, but at least I read 20 of my shelf. Okay, let's talk about my most disappointing book first, and that one is Artemis by Andy Weir. So Andy Weir is the writer of The Martian, and The Martian is one of my favorite sci-fi books. It takes place on Mars, and I was really excited to read Andy Weir's other book, Artemis, which also takes place in space. It takes place on the moon, in this sort of colony that lives there. And we follow this main character. She's like 26, 25, 26, I believe, and she has to do this sort of heist on the moon. It sounded amazing. I was really excited to read it, but I was so disappointed by this book because the main character felt so just fake. It felt like a stereotypical sexy girl written by a bunch of guys, and I just did not enjoy reading from her point of view. I did enjoy quite a few of the other characters in the book, but just the main character? No, thank you. So luckily in his next book that will be released quite soon, I've heard that that one is actually amazing and people are raving about that. It is called Project Hail Mary, I believe, and the main character in that book is again an older man, so I'm much more confident in that that character will feel a lot more real compared to the character in Artemis. So yeah, Artemis unfortunately was a very disappointing one, but I'm very excited to read his next book. I've already pre-ordered it. Then my most surprising read was Hold Back the Tide by Melinda Salisbury. This is a book that I got in a book subscription box a whole while ago. I think like a year, maybe 2 years ago, and it's a short fantasy book. It's just a standalone, but I don't know, I just was never really too interested in picking it up. But I just decided, you know what, I want to read something short, fantasy, let's pick it up. And I was just so surprised by this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So basically, as you can see from the cover, it looks quite creepy. It has to do with this lake. I believe it is inspired by Scotland and all of the lochs in Scotland. And we follow this main character. It's a fantasy, by the way, and you know, kind of evil things are happening and you're figuring out what is happening and what her town and her family has to do with it. And I was just so surprised by this book because the story itself was quite like simple, but then in the end I love that you finally got to know about how everything became the way it is now, and it was just super thrilling. It was quite a bit creepy at times, and I just loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I think this was everything that I just want in a fantasy book. An awesome story with cool characters that I genuinely cared about, and then in the end you find out what actually happened, and the thing that actually happened and like how everything comes together was something that I didn't expect. So it was a shock and I just loved it. This was a very surprising one because I just didn't really expect much from it. So if you're just looking for a quick fantasy read, highly recommend that one. And it is a standalone, which is my fave because I'm so bad at reading series. We had my most disappointing one because I really expected a lot from Artemis, but now I'm just going to talk about my least favorite one that, you know, I didn't really expect too much from it. It was just not my favorite, and that was The Long Walk by Stephen King. This was actually my very first Stephen King book I ever read. I'd never read anything before by him, and I was quite excited to read it. I just didn't really know much about it, so I didn't really expect much, but basically this is a very short novel. It's written under a pen name, and he wrote it, I believe, when he was like a teenager, someone told me. So in that sense, I'm still quite impressed with his writing and his ability to create stories, but I was just a bit bored throughout the book. So basically The Long Walk is about the long walk, and this is a walk through America in which 100 guys participate in, and the rules are you walk at a steady pace of 4 miles per hour, and if you don't, you get like 3 warnings and otherwise you're out, and also you either reach the end and win or you die. So it felt very like creepy, of course, and at first you thought, how is this going to be like interesting? It's just walking. But I was quite surprised by the fact that it is only about walking, but what was interesting was you know, you follow these characters throughout this walk and how emotionally and physically exhausted they get, and you know, their thoughts, they're going just crazy. They are constantly walking for hours and hours and days. So it was really kind of fascinating to see how it impacts those characters mentally and physically. So that was a part that I did really enjoy about the book, but I was still quite bored and I wasn't too impressed by the ending. So overall, this was my least favorite book that I read in the past few months. I do really want to give Stephen King another try. I have this other book, 11 ow, I just hit my piano with my elbow. 11/22/63, which is about 22, which is about the Kennedy assassination, and I believe this is like a time travel. I'm not too sure, but I've heard that that one is really good, so I will still definitely read that one. But yeah, The Long Walk was not really a success. Then my favorite book that I read this year, which was no surprise, is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love her stories about the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, her historical fiction books, Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, and now we have a third one, Malibu Rising. So Malibu Rising is all about Nina Riva, and Nina Riva is the daughter of Mick Riva, and Mick Riva is this awesome like rock and roll musician who is also featured in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo as well as Daisy Jones and the Six. So it all like comes together and it's all in one rock and roll universe. Oh, I was so excited when I found that out. So Malibu Rising is about Nina Riva, and she always hosts this very, very big party at the end of summer in Malibu, in her Malibu home, where they basically celebrate the end of summer and just, you know, end summer on a very, very high note with an awesome party. But shit is going down, and, you know, we meet so many different characters, so many like personal things between some of them, and it was just so very good. I just am so amazed by Taylor Jenkins Reid's ability to write characters, because I genuinely feel like these characters are real, and it was so good. I do have to say that it is my least favorite of the three. So Daisy Jones is my fave, then Evelyn Hugo, and then Malibu Rising. However, it was still up there. It is like, I loved it so very much. So I can't wait. Well, like I hope that Taylor Jenkins Reid will write more in her, you know, famous people, celebrity universe, because they're just my favorite books. So that was definitely no surprise that that was my favorite, hence why it's just my favorite. I do want to talk about another surprising read that I actually didn't know much about, I hadn't really read much about, and I just saw it on Script. I thought I would listen to it, and it is called Where We Go From Here. This is a contemporary LGBTQIA+ story that takes place in Brazil, and it is all about HIV. And I had never read a story where we follow characters who deal with HIV in one way or another. So in this book you follow 3 young men, and each one of them like either has HIV, has just been diagnosed with HIV, or knows someone who has HIV. And this really taught me so much about HIV and AIDS, and how there's always this stigma surrounding it. And it taught me so much about how you can actually like treat this and become undetectable, so you can't transmit it to other people. But I think so many people don't know that, so you can have a very safe life with HIV. And it was told to me through these characters, and it was so emotional and so interesting and so well written that this was a complete surprise. I did not expect this book to be so amazing as it is. I also gave it 5 stars, and I read it around the same time that I heard about this show in the UK. I forgot the name, I will put a photo up here. That one is currently also so popular because it also talks about HIV and, you know, the stigma surrounding HIV and how it also taught viewers so much about it. So I am so happy I listened to this book. I highly recommend it, and it was definitely a very, very big surprise. And I think it's so important that these books are around because readers learn so much through these books, so highly recommend it. So these were some of the books I wanted to talk about the last 3 months, as well as some statistics. I really hope you liked it. Let me know if you want me to do more of these for like the 2nd quarter of the year, 3rd one and 4th one, because I just loved doing that. I love making pie charts and just looking at numbers and statistics and everything. So let me know in the comments. I really hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you don't know what to comment, but you want to comment something to just show me you're there, comment your lucky number, but then in emojis. You have like these squared emojis with a number, right? So comment your lucky number. My lucky number is 8. And I will just know that you've watched the video, and I just love seeing your comments. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to follow me on my social media, of course you can. I always put everything down below in the description. And last but not least, I really hope you're having a brilliant day, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!